I never imagined that a bridal shower could split my entire family, the way a battlefield divides soldiers. But my brother's fiancée Harper proved that there's no limit to chaos when someone wants to be both the center of the universe and the guardian of spiritual purity. Harper was 28, an American woman who lived inside a world of modern spirituality, believing in vibration frequencies, crystal healing, moon cycle detoxes, past life regression, and using tarot readings the way normal people use a Google Calendar. My brother, Evan, 2 years younger than me, was gentle to the point of being dangerously kind. The type who would hand someone his jacket, his dinner, or even his day if they simply said they needed it. When Evan loves someone, he wholeheartedly believes in their world. And that's why I felt drama simmering beneath the surface drama. That eventually proved my intuition was sharper than any oracle deck Harper ever owned. When I first met Harper, she seemed pleasant enough, a little theatrical, a bit overly mystical, but manageable. But the moment she got engaged, she activated a full-blown spiritual diva mode. She didn't choose me as a bridesmaid because she claimed family-tethered energy could disrupt the purity of her bridal party. I thought she was joking. She absolutely was not. Fine, though less money wasted on matching dresses. But then she requested to host her bridal shower at my mother's ranch house in the Colorado countryside, claiming the land had natural grounding vibrations ideal for ancestral connection. My mother, who fears confrontation more than natural disasters, smiled and agreed without a fight. A week before the event, I received an email from Harper containing a 47-slide PowerPoint. I opened it while drinking my morning coffee and nearly died laughing. She detailed everything from the earth tone dress code colors that express soul softness, to a food list spanning gluten, dairy, meat substitutes, and even spiritually synthetic ingredients, a phrase I still don't understand to this day. The slideshow also listed forbidden conversation topics: work, weather, finances, politics, negativity, stressful thoughts, and even meteorology because, according to Harper, talking about the weather lowers the event's vibrational altitude. The final slide was titled, Movement Guidelines, Limit Harsh Footsteps, Avoid Slamming Doors and Maintain Sound Purity. On the day of the bridal shower, I still tried to be polite. I wore a beige blouse with cream trousers, light makeup, hair pulled back neatly. Harper greeted me with an exaggerated air kiss, the kind of kiss you give someone who might contaminate your aura. She glanced at my outfit and commented, "Oh, bold choice." I had no idea what was bold about a beige blouse apparently. It didn't match her imaginary energy palette. Moments later, she announced the start of the celebration with a guided communal soul connection meditation. Everyone closed their eyes. Halfway through, Harper broke into dramatic sobs because her heart frequency was vibrating harder than her body could contain. A cousin of hers wrapped a shawl around her shoulders as if performing a spirit calling ritual. I cracked open one eye and saw my mother sitting in the corner, face pale, stress-eating gluten-free crackers like she was trying to keep herself from passing out. I stepped outside to breathe, but I wasn't outside for even 5 minutes before Harper's maid of honor rushed over and begged me for help. Harper wants everyone to share a beautiful memory they have with her. Can you go next? I almost laughed. A memory? I barely knew Harper 10 times over, and each time she felt like a different incarnation of herself. But wanting to avoid drama, I agreed. I walked back inside, smiled, and began, "Hi everyone. I'm Evan's sister." I haven't known Harper for very long, but I hope I didn't even finish my sentence before Harper interrupted in front of all her guests. "That sounds negative. You should say something more loving." I stood there for 3 seconds, silently reminding myself not to roll my eyes. If she wanted a memory, fine. She get a memory, the real ones. So I restarted. Except instead of something flowery or fake, I listed actual things she'd done. Refusing to eat Trader Joe's food because the packaging held manipulative energy, claiming my mother's sofa gave her hives due to ancestral static, and requiring Evan to complete a 3-day silent retreat before proposing so she could receive the universal message clearly. And Evan, sweet idiot that he is, had actually done it. Some people stifled laughter. Some turned their faces away. Harper stood frozen, her face draining of color, eyes widening like I had just disrupted a sacred lunar ritual. Then she stormed out. Minutes later, Evan called me from outside, furious. Harper blocked me on Instagram and posted cryptic messages about snakes hiding in the garden. My family split down the middle, and deep in my gut, I knew one thing for sure: this was only the beginning. Asterisk if the bridal shower was the first crack in Harper's carefully curated spiritual universe, then what happened in the weeks that followed was the full earthquake. The kind that rips through every fault line someone pretends isn't there. The chaos began almost immediately. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from relatives, some defending Harper, some attacking her, some demanding that I apologize. and some quietly admitting they had always felt something was off about her. Evan, who had always been mild and gentle, suddenly turned defensive, parroting Harper's phrases, word for word as if reading from a script about energetic contamination, ancestral frequencies, and the need to shield their sacred union from outside distortions. It hurt more than I expected, not because I needed him to take my side, but because he was becoming unrecognizable, like a man drowning but insisting the water was healing him. I had already accepted that I wouldn't be a bridesmaid, but I learned through a group text that I wasn't even invited to the wedding anymore. Harper told Evan that my presence could fracture her soul alignment. On the most important spiritual day of her life, the wedding would take place in Sedona, of course, at a retreat center famous for its drum circles, fire rituals, and sound immersion ceremonies. The moment my cousin Jess forwarded me the official guest guidelines, all 43 pages of them, I understood that this wasn't a wedding. It was a performance, a ritual staged to make Harper feel like a celestial being. The document banned sunglasses, plastic water bottles, perfume, leather shoes, red lipstick, and synthetic emotional expressions. Guests were encouraged to hold eye contact whenever possible and to speak softly until noon to preserve the dawn's energetic integrity. Even the parking instructions were bizarre. Cars had to reverse into parking spots to symbolize openness to the universe. Jess's boyfriend joked I should crash the wedding. Everyone laughed, except the longer I stared at that document, the more the joke began to interest me. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to fight. But I wanted the truth. I wanted to see for myself who my brother was marrying and who he was becoming. And more importantly, I wanted to see whether the version of Harper who cried at the bridal shower was the same woman he was about to bind his life to dot. So on the day of the wedding, I drove to Sedona. I dressed simply a white sundress and sandals. Not bridal white, just soft, light, and neutral enough to blend in. I walked in like a normal retreat guest. No one asked questions. The place smelled like incense and burning sage, and someone was chanting near a row of amethyst towers. A woman in beads and feathers was cleansing the bushes with smoke. Again, I reminded myself this was a wedding, a legally binding ceremony, not a mystical Renaissance fair. Evan stood barefoot in white linen, holding a tambourine instead of a bouquet, sweat beading on his forehead. He looked like a man simultaneously terrified and determined, like someone who had already convinced himself he needed to endure whatever this was, for the sake of love. The guests arranged themselves on woven rugs instead of chairs, forming a circle around a crystal altar. Everything felt surreal. Then Harper emerged. She wore a flowing white gown embroidered with vines and tiny crystals, her veil adorned with fox greenery and silver threads. She walked with slow, dramatic steps, her expression solemn as if she weren't walking to her husband, but descending from a cloud to grace mortals with her presence. For a moment, guests murmured with awe. It really was a spectacle. But the moment her eyes found me among the crowd, her expression tightened. The softness vanished. She walked straight toward me, each step sharper than the last. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice thin but vibrating with anger. I stared right back and said calmly, "I'm here to support my brother. Nothing more." For a split second, I thought she might scream. Instead, she snapped her fingers. Actually snapped them, and one of the groomsmen came over. "Please escort her out," Harper said without breaking eye contact with me. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I simply nodded and let the man walk me to the edge of the ceremony area. But that calm exit, that tiny moment of silent defiance, that was apparently all it took to detonate the entire event. Later, Jess told me that as soon as I left, Harper accused her of conspiring with me. Jess laughed in disbelief, and Harper's immediate reaction was to order her out as well. Jess refused, so the groomsmen tried removing her. Jess's boyfriend, who had been drinking wine since 10 a.m., threw his cup at the man. Guests started arguing, some defending Harper, others saying she was overreacting. Someone knocked over a ceremonial drum. Someone else stepped on a sage bundle and slipped. The officiant cried. Harper screamed at Jess for inviting dark forces into her sacred circle. People rushed to leave. And yet miraculously, impossibly, Harper and Evan still carried on with the ceremony. They technically married, but according to everyone who stayed, it was a disaster, chaotic, disorganized, overshadowed by the tension in the air and the frantic energy swirling around a bride who wanted to perform enlightenment but couldn't control the storm of her own making. That night, Harper posted a long cryptic paragraph online about purging shadows and unmasking snakes. Evan unfriended me on every platform, and for a moment, I genuinely thought this was a point where I would lose my brother forever. But the universe ironically wasn't done unraveling Harper. There was more, much more, and none of it had anything to do with me interfering. Her own behavior pulled the threads loose, one by one. If the wedding was a spiritual circus, Then the honeymoon was the aftershock, the moment when Harper's carefully manufactured persona finally collided with real life, and for the first time, Evan began to see the cracks that everyone else had seen long before him. I didn't know most of this until much later, when Evan finally reached out again. But when he did, the details made everything that had happened at the bridal shower and wedding look like amateur warm-up acts. Harper dragged Evan to Tulum for what she called a sacred union retreat, a trip she booked entirely on her own without consulting him. The resort she chose was an eco hotel that marketed itself as spiritually aligned with the sun. Wooden huts, communal areas, zero air conditioning, and strict fire safety rules because everything was made of dry palm leaves. But Harper, in her eternal quest to feel like the heroine of her own mystical saga, decided she needed to purify the honeymoon atmosphere by burning Palo Santo. Inside their hut at midnight, the smoke was so dense that it set off the fire alarm and alerted hotel staff. When they rushed to her room and told her she needed to stop because she was breaking safety regulations, Harper exploded, accusing them of colonizing her spiritual expression and suffocating feminine divine energy. When one staff member tried to explain again calmly that fire hazards were taken seriously because several huts had burned down the previous year, Harper threw a smoothie at him. Evan had to physically pull her away, apologizing to everyone as she continued shouting phrases that made absolutely no sense. Outside her personal fantasy world, they were kicked out of the resort that same night. 3 days. That was how long their honeymoon lasted. Evan finally texted me after weeks of silence. The message was short, but the desperation was obvious. "Do you still have the bridal shower PowerPoint?" I didn't answer immediately. I didn't know if it was a trap, if Harper had asked him to test me, or if he genuinely needed help. But a minute later, another message appeared. "I need to talk. Just us, please." The next afternoon, Evan met me at a Starbucks in Denver. He looked pale, exhausted, and older than he had any right to look at 30. He sat across from me, hands wrapped around his cup as if it were keeping him tethered to the earth. For a while, he didn't say anything, and then everything poured out at once. Harper wanted an open marriage, he said, because monogamy was a patriarchal concept incompatible with her spiritual growth. She claimed she had received visions that her true destiny involved multiple soul connections. She accused Evan of restricting her cosmic expansion whenever he questioned her choices. She refused therapy, saying therapists were emotionally colonial. She wanted Evan to quit his job and join her spiritual coaching brand, which was basically a subscription service where she filmed herself talking to crystals. But the worst part, Evan admitted, was that deep down he had known something was wrong all along, but he had been too in love, too overwhelmed, too hopeful to listen. He also said he felt trapped. Harper didn't believe in boundaries. She read his text messages, monitored his social media, filtered his friends into high vibration or low vibration, and categorized half his co-workers as energetic parasites. He couldn't breathe. I listened to him quietly. When he stopped talking, he asked me the question he had clearly been afraid to ask. "Do you think I made a mistake marrying her?" I didn't soften the truth. "Yes," I said. "But mistakes can be fixed." Evan lowered his head into his hands. "I need proof," he whispered. "Something she can't twist. Something that shows who she really is." And that was when he remembered his friend Damon had recorded the entire wedding on a high-quality camera, including backstage audio from the microphones. The next day, Evan and I watched the footage together in Damon's living room. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what was captured. Harper hijacked the ceremony multiple times, giving long monologues about reincarnated lovers, soul contracts, and cosmic obligations. She refused to make traditional vows, saying she didn't believe in mortal promises. The officiant refused to let Evan speak more than 30 seconds because ego disrupts sacred flow. During a private moment after the ceremony, Harper, unaware her microphone was still on, said to her maid of honor, "Honestly, I didn't think he'd actually go through with it. I kind of respect that he didn't run." She laughed afterward. Evan went still. Completely still. I watched the life drain from his eyes as he listened to his own wedding day turned into a farce. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just closed his laptop and said, "I have to end this." We helped him plan for days. Not revenge, just escape. Evan decided he would speak to Harper calmly, using her own spiritual language against her. He would tell her their timelines were diverging, their frequencies no longer aligned, their connection interfering with each other's growth. And if she tried to twist the narrative, he would show her the footage the day he talked to her. They sat in the center of their apartment surrounded by candles and lavender incense. Evan told her everything, the doubts, the hurt, the exhaustion, the truth. He told her he wanted a divorce. Harper didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just tilted her head and said, "I already saw this in a dream." Then she added, almost casually, Can we remain platonic soulmates? Evan walked out. That night, he flew back to Denver with only a suitcase. Harper posted a photo of herself in the desert with a caption about rising through rebirth and releasing attachments that no longer serve my cosmic path. I commented a snake emoji, then deleted it not because I regretted it, but because I realized I didn't need to say anything anymore. She was exposing herself perfectly well without my help, for the first time in months. Evan slept peacefully, but the universe wasn't done destroying Harper's fantasy. There was still one last chapter waiting for her, and surprisingly, it wasn't what I expected at all. If the honeymoon was the unraveling, then the months that followed were the collapse, the slow, almost cinematic disintegration of Harper's entire persona, layer by layer, until even she could no longer pretend to be the enlightened goddess she had worked so hard to portray. And somehow, in that collapse, something unexpected happened. Clarity. Not for her. At least not at first, but for everyone she had dragged into her whirlwind of spirituality. It started when a man named Sun followed me on Instagram. Yes, Sun, his profile was a shrine to himself. Shirtless dessert poses, crystal pyramids, captions about solar consciousness, and videos of him yelling affirmations at the sunrise. At first I thought he was just another influencer with an overinflated sense of enlightenment. But then I saw Harper in his photos. At first just in the background, then standing beside him, then holding hands with him while he wore 5 necklaces and no shirt. Curious. I tapped through more posts. A pattern emerged: ritual circles, dessert ceremonies, sunset chanting sessions. And there she was in the center of all of them, smiling like she had found the purest form of herself. Digging deeper, I discovered a wedding photo. A new wedding photo. Harper in a gold dress, barefoot in the desert, holding a tall crystal staff while Sun stood beside her wearing white linen pants and a gold sash, posing like a man who believed the universe personally selected him. The caption read, "Goodbye Moon. Hello Sun." I physically had to put down my phone from laughing. Not because divorce is funny, it isn't, but because Harper had pivoted her entire identity. In record time, she abandoned Moon energy in exchange for Sun energy. She replaced one cosmic archetype with another. She didn't heal, she rebranded. When I showed Evan, he didn't get angry. He didn't look hurt. He just let out the softest, most exhausted laugh I had ever heard from him. A laugh of someone who knew he had escaped something dangerous, and now was finally able to observe it from a safe, sane distance. That could have been me, he said. I might have been in those photos, but fate wasn't finished with Harper yet. Weeks later, Harper messaged me. Not publicly, not dramatically, quietly, privately, late at night, with a long paragraph that looked nothing like her usual cryptic, spiritually loaded posts. The message began with, "I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to say it." I didn't respond immediately. I kept reading. She continued, "Thank you for being honest at the bridal shower. You cracked something in me, something I didn't want to see. I was living inside a version of myself that wasn't real, and you were the first person to say it out loud." I sat up straight when I read that. Not because I needed validation, but because I never expected accountability from a woman who had once accused me of poisoning her. Then came the next part. Sun wasn't who I thought he was. We separated. I won't blame energies or vibrations this time. I won't call it destiny. I made choices, bad ones, and I'm trying to unlearn the parts of myself that needed so much attention, performance, and control for the first time. Harper's words didn't sound like a monologue written for an audience. They sounded human. She asked if we could meet for coffee someday. "Just as a people," she wrote. "No crystals, no circles, no ceremonies." I didn't scream. I didn't gloat. I didn't punish her. I simply replied, "Maybe someday." Not to reject her, but because I truly didn't know whether she was ready to face reality, without turning it into another spiritual storyline. A day later, Evan received a long apology too. She admitted she had manipulated him, pushed him, pressured him, and used spirituality to justify control. She said he had been kind, and she had taken advantage of that kindness. She didn't ask for reconciliation. She didn't ask for a second chance. She simply asked for forgiveness, not to return to him, but to release herself. And Evan, being who he is, gave it to her. Not because she deserved it necessarily, but because he wanted to let go. He wanted to live his life without being haunted by the weight of someone else's chaos. He told my mom later that week, "She didn't destroy me. She taught me what I should never accept again." My mom cried, hugged him, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. A few days after, she asked me quietly, "Do you regret saying those things at the bridal shower? Do you think you pushed her too hard?" I thought about everything: the chaos, the fight, the meltdown, the wedding disaster, the honeymoon fiasco, the secret mic recording, the dessert rebrand, the apology. And I answered honestly, "No. I didn't ruin anything. I just told the truth." Evan nodded beside me. If she had broken me, he said softly, it wouldn't have been her fault. It would have been mine for ignoring what was in front of me. My sister didn't ruin anything. She saved me. And that's the part people forget. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy a person, it frees the right one. So am I the asshole? Honestly, not even close.